God bless America, and I'm grateful to be here. It's an honor of my lifetime to be, number one, a child of God, number two, a follower of Jesus Christ, number three, the husband of Katrina Kennedy, who's here today. And if my wife would just give a little raise. The only reason I'm useful to you is because I'm married to her. She's an amazing person. And the father of 8 children and the grandfather of 12. We have two babies that are in the works right now. We have 10 grandbabies that are already here. And it's, next to those things, and I believe this audience understands that, next to those things, the greatest privilege of my life has been to serve you in Congress. And I don't take that lightly. I take my job very seriously. Which, the first thing, and I've got some prepared remarks, and by the way, where's the timer? I know there's a 20-minute timer. Oh, you're my timer. Okay, great. Thank you for doing that. So I'd like to take some questions at some point through this process. So Jared, if you'd, about 10 minutes, but 5 minutes with my time left, if people want to ask questions, write them down, hand them to Gail, or if you want to just stand up and do the questions, I really want to hear from you if you want to. But I've got prepared remarks, and I can easily spend your 20 minutes. However we would like. But I want to start with the elephant in the room, which is this transgender bill that I voted against actually just a few weeks ago. And I am not embarrassed. I'm not hesitant to describe to you my thought process about that bill. And then I'll get to my prepared remarks, and we'll talk about the amazing United States of America, and hopefully I get some time to take your questions. So for those that know about the bill, it's Marjorie Taylor Greene's bill, and it's focused on doctors that provide transgender surgeries, puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones. Those doctors could be fined $10,000 or be put in jail as a result of the execution of those procedures on those children. I would first emphasize, as I describe this, that I'm the first one in this state to ban those procedures and ban those cross-sex hormones and puberty blockers in this state. And for 3 years, that has been protecting our children in this state. And I'm proud of that fact, that not only did the proposal, and Gail and I worked diligently on this together, not only did that proposal make it through the legislative process, which is not easy. It is not easy. It took me countless hours to find the policies that I could actually get through the House, get through the Senate, and get to the governor's desk and get a signature. That is the nature of politics. And I am dedicated to functioning policy. I am not dedicated to optics and politics. And if you want me to do politics, you've got the wrong guy, because I'm focused on getting things to President Trump's desk in the federal legislature. I'm not focused on symbolic wins that we can all herald as if we really are protecting children. And I'm telling you right now, that bill that was passed out of the House is never going to protect children. I've got reasons why I believe that. I'm not going to get into those reasons, but I do want to tell you the problems with that legislation. So here is another part of what I did in 2023, along with my legislative colleagues. Where's Rex Chip? I know he's here. And I'm proud to have worked with him and many others to make this stuff happen, is that bill to this day has not been litigated. And I want you to remember, our judiciary is more likely 80% liberals. Our judiciaries, our judges are mostly liberal people. There may be 10 or 20% that think and maybe judge the way you and I would, but the vast majority of them are liberal people. So I want you to think about, if Marjorie Taylor Greene's bill actually became legislation, immediately it would be litigated. Immediately. By the way, in that legislation, and Al Jackson's here, he's been a great mentor to me, a great friend as well. He pointed this out too. It's just another problem with the bill. In that bill, number one, it defines men and women. And when we define men and women in code, then all of a sudden, guess what you can get judges doing? They can litigate, and then they can decide. Judges can decide what men and women are. Does that make you comfortable? It doesn't make me comfortable. I'm very disturbed about that possibility, number one. Number two, if this bill were to become law, then it would be litigated immediately. And you know what would happen with that litigation? They may not only go through the process to determine whether that bill is constitutional, they may look at the state of Utah and 25 other states that have passed bans on these processes already throughout the country. They're going to look at all of those as well. And they're going to judge whether or not those are constitutional or not. And how do you know that this is a reasonable thought process on my part? Is guess what happened with the Defense of Marriage Act? Do you remember that? Defense of Marriage Act, federal law. We came in 15, 20 years ago. And I'm totally supportive of this general concept, but I'm warning you that when we pass legislation, we give this stuff to the judges. That is why we have gay marriage as law of the land today. Because when we pass federal legislation that says this is what marriage is in the United States of America, and then it's litigated and we hand it over to judges, what do those judges do? All the way up to the Supreme Court, gay marriage is the law of the land, because we get into that. So I'm warning you that we can do the progressive left's duty and job just by trying to pass our conservative legislation, because the left understands as soon as we do that sort of thing, they can get that litigated, they can turn it over to their judges, and all of a sudden, I'm warning you, there can be a constitutional right for minors to receive transgendered surgeries, cross-sex hormones, and puberty blockers. So along those lines, and I'm just explaining how I think. If you do not agree with me, I totally respect that. You are smart, good people, and I love you, and I'm grateful to be your representative. And I will never betray the Eagle Forum. I am there to serve you and the policies that you're moving forward. How do you know? For 10 years in the state legislature, I've done that kind of stuff. My record is clear that I am a strong conservative, but I read my bills. I read every bill that I get. And anybody that's opposed to the bill vote that I took 2 weeks ago, I'm going to ask you first, did you read the bill? Did you think about the policies? Have you, for countless hours, I've thought about this stuff and tried to figure out what is it that I can do that not only I can get through the House and the Senate, but I can get the governor to sign it. And I'm doing the same thing on the federal side. What is it I can do to get something off the House floor, off the Senate floor, which John Curtis already told us, you need 60 votes, including Democrats, to get something off the Senate floor and then get the president to sign it so it really protects children. So when we clap and applaud and we say, oh, Marjorie Taylor Greene, God bless her, it's fine. She's out of the legislature now. She's abandoned her little baby bill. I mean, she's not going to carry that thing forward. She's gone. She's left the legislature. So if she cared so much about this, why didn't she stay and try to shepherd that through the Senate and get it off to the president's desk so it really could potentially protect children? Although I'm warning you, I don't believe it would. So those are just some of my thoughts. And if you don't like those thoughts, I totally respect that. But I am not voting for bad policy just because it's good politics. And that's the kind of legislator that I am. And I am grateful to come to you and say that I am thinking through every possible permutation of every bill. And I'm not perfect. I don't have all the answers, but I want to hear from you. You got concerns about these bills, you let me know, and I'm going to try to do my best to carry them forward. Because this is the United States of America. We are celebrating 250 years of this country. And I believe that if we do the right things today, 250 years from now, there's a baby right there. God bless you for bringing your baby. I hope the baby's learning something. Yay, babies. I love babies. Babies are great. 250 years from now, when this country celebrates 500 years, even that baby would have been old, and there's a gravestone for the baby. We all will be off this planet. We are temporary occupants of this place. And I take that seriously too, because the United States of America is a concept, it's a country, and people throughout the history of time have craved the privilege that we every day get to live, and most of us don't even think about. I know you think about it, but most of us don't even think about the privilege that we have to function in a free society and to work with each other and to argue with each other and debate policies and actually to have our government theoretically, and I'm trying to make it that way, our government should work for us, not us working for this stinking government. Federal government is constantly in our way, trying to take over our rights and privileges, and I am not that kind of guy. I'm trying to empower you to make sure that that government is working for you so that 500 years from now, or 250 years from now, when our country celebrates its 500th birthday, they can look back and they won't know our names. They won't even know or care the things that we did. But the United States of America still lives, and it still functions, because 250 years ago, 1777, George Washington was in Valley Forge. And can you imagine what that guy's life was like? It was terrible. Matter of fact, the whole wooden teeth thing, it's terrible. If you've ever been it's Mount Vernon, one of the most touching things as a doctor for me that I've been to. You go to Mount Vernon, they've got his dentures. It's a horrific assemblage of wooden and hippo teeth that they carved and crammed into some wooden plate. No wonder that guy didn't smile, but I'm telling you right now, that guy had so many pressures and stresses on him. He had a ragtag army. He was a godly servant, and he was on a mission. I feel like Charlie Kirk was the same thing. Erica Kirk says, Charlie Kirk showed up to Washington, D.C., and they thought he didn't know what he was doing, and Erica said he knew exactly what he was doing. I feel the same about George Washington and many of our other God-blessed people who are trying to actually fight for liberty. But George Washington in 1777 was fighting the Revolutionary War. It was wintertime. His soldiers lacked ammunition. They didn't have coats. They didn't have shoes. And George Washington looked at this ragtag army, and he looked at the greatest army on the planet, the British army, that he was fighting against. And he knew the only solution that he had available to him, much like Abraham Lincoln said, is when I have nowhere else to go, I have to go to my knees, because there's nobody else that can help me but God. And I feel that. In this work, as a father, as a husband, and in this case, as a congressman, I can't do this stuff by myself. I need God to be with me. And every day I pray for help, because I'm not smart enough to do this stuff. So I'm trying to be serious and sober about it. I know George Washington was as well. And he went out to the woods by himself in the snow, and he knelt down and he prayed for his soldiers, for the cause of liberty, because he knew he was fighting for something much greater than just defeating an army or winning a battle. He was fighting for the cause of freedom. And he knew that the things, I know he could feel it. I can only imagine that maybe God would give him visions of what this amazing country could be like in the upcoming hundreds of years that would go forward. He had a fight to do that day, but God inspired and helped that man, because we know countries are not born, they're not made on easy circumstances. Countries require sacrifice. Freedom requires sacrifice. And when I walked to that United States Capitol building, which is one of the privileges of my life to serve you and go into that Capitol building, I work for the people of Utah. I work for the people of the 3rd District. I work for the United States of America. And in the United States Capitol Rotunda, on top of that rotunda, some of you that have come along with me know there's a statue on the top of that rotunda. It's called who knows in this room? Gail's been on that tour with me. It's the Statue of Freedom. It is what we are all fighting for. Freedom is greater than anything else we can fight. And Charlie Kirk taught me something. When you follow the path of freedom, you always find Jesus Christ. So when I go to Washington, D.C., when I see that Capitol Rotunda, and I look at that statue on top of there, I know that my task, and I tell my team all the time, that we are not just working for our people, and it's a privilege to do that. We are not just working for the United States of America. We are working for freedom, because that is something that humans since the beginning of time have craved, and many governments have betrayed their people. So how do you know I'm working on that? We are trying to cut red tape and make sure the bureaucracies of Washington, D.C. are out of your way. We passed the SPEED Act, which is a permitting reform act, which is going to actually help our businesses to be able to function. They can build buildings. We can build electrical transformation, electrical generation lines, and build power plants without having to take 20 years to do it. Mines, at this point, you're trying to open a mine in the United States of America, from concept to finally starting to dig, 30 years it takes, because of all the environmental regulations and the permits that are required associated with NEPA and other things. This is utter nonsense created by progressives that are trying to actually derail the capacity of our country to be successful. I have passed off the House floor a bill to ban Chinese Communist Party infiltrators in our universities from coming to steal our data and make China great at the expense of the research and efforts that we've put into here. I've worked on the Utah Wildfire Research Institute Act, which is these conflagrations that happen every summer because our federal lands are poorly maintained, that these conflagrations are actually preventable if we actually had the data that we could use to manage God's earth that he's given to us in the way that he intends. When Adam and Eve came to this place, they were commanded to multiply and replenish the earth and to be good and take care of the planet. And that is our duty and responsibility. I believe that's a God responsibility he's given all of us as well. And we've been forbidden from doing that because more than 60% of our federal lands in this state are controlled by the federal government, and they are entirely mismanaged. It's like my 8 children. If I was managing my children like the federal government manages these lands, I wouldn't. My wife and I wouldn't even live in the house. We just let the kids do whatever they want, and once a month we might check in with them and see how things are going. That's how the federal government manages our lands. This is nonsense, and I'm fighting to make sure that we are in charge of our families, our education system here in the state, and we are in charge of our federal lands. Now, my time is kind of running low. I got a few more things to say, but if somebody would like, if you have questions, I would love to take those questions. Oh no, it's from Joel Wright. Let me ignore him and go to is anybody else? So Joel, go ahead. And if you need a microphone, you can come on up and take mine, but come on up. This better be a good question because you're taking my time.
I got to spend a week in New Zealand just recently. Beautiful country, super nice people, very liberal, very woke. Lots of racial diversity, lots of immigration. They very carefully screen the people there. All the immigrants. I felt safer going everywhere in New Zealand than I do in Provo and Salt Lake. Why don't we screen our immigrants? The federal government's in charge of this. Why? I mean, New Zealand, liberal, woke, they carefully screen their immigrants. Why don't we?
This is a great question. I want to take that. So I talked to my brother, who's not deeply political, but he's a smart, good guy. And he said, well, why is it that the borders are open? Why do the Democrats want tens of millions of people to just flow across our borders? And I think the people in this room understand that. Guess what we do when we count the census? Do we count citizens? No, we should. And actually, we're working on that one too. You want to be a part of the United States of America census and count for distribution of these congressional seats, is you better be a citizen. Anyways, we're working on that part because that is vital associated with this. But guess what we do in the current census? We actually count bodies. And those bodies, guess when those 20 million unknown people, some of whom are outright terrorists and criminals, my dad's an immigrant, by the way, from Canada. I love immigrants. I want people to come here. You need to do that legally. If you're going to come here, you come here legally. We'll make it, I'm working on making that easier to do as well. But we count bodies and then we distribute the congressional seats based on the count of those people. The Democrats are not focused on charity to the world's people. The Democrats are focused solely on power with this 20, 30, I've heard numbers like 50 million people in this country right now who are illegal. And guess where they flow? They flow to places like Minnesota, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And you know what they find there? Actually, that's we just had an oversight hearing on Wednesday. You know what they find there? They find free health care in the form of Medicaid. And they come in and they take Medicaid, and 10 years later, they're still on Medicaid. They come here and find SNAP benefits, food stamp benefits. 10 years later, they're still on SNAP benefits. In fact, I've talked to people, these immigrants who are stealing billions and billions of dollars in Minnesota are just the tip of the iceberg. The fraud, waste, and abuse is filthy, what's going on in this country. I'm sorry to churn your stomach before lunch. I hope you can eat. I don't feel like eating for the rest of the day with listening to this stuff. So the fraud, waste, and abuse, these people go on SNAP, they actually buy food, and then they use whatever money they have to invest it in their business. And they increase the returns on their business because they don't even have to spend money on home. They get free housing, free healthcare, and free food, and they take that to the end of time. And 10 years later, there's evidence that these people are not even off that. So Joel, thanks for that question, because I'm a big fan of legal immigration, but God bless Donald Trump for sealing the border. My time is almost up. I'm going to get the hook, but and I'll be out. I'm happy to be out taking questions. I do have another meeting to go to here shortly, but I want you to know I love this country. I have my wife and I. We have taken a serious demotion taking this job. I loved my work in the Utah State Senate. I was grateful to work with reasonable colleagues like Rex Shipp and others in the Utah State Legislature. And I've gone to Washington, D.C. and taken a 50% pay cut in spite of what somebody's maybe going to say that I'm on the take or something like that. Is like, my life would be way better if I could just stay home, go to my doctor's office and do some part-time legislating. But I am grateful for the time that I can serve you to be your United States Congressman and bring the people of Utah in my head and in my heart every day to these votes that I'm taking there in Washington, D.C. So God bless America, and let's do the right things today so that 250 years from now, long after we're gone off this planet, our great-great-great-grandchildren can look back and say, thank God for grandma and grandpa that actually did the right things back then, so long ago, so that we can still have this blessed country. I am honored to be here with you today. Thank you for allowing me to do that. Gail, thanks for the invitation.